Hi everyone, and welcome to Book Boop. My name is Rachel, and today I'm going to be doing my December wrap-up, which December feels like a lifetime ago already now that it's mid-January. But I read 6 books in December, and a lot of them were very whimsical, fairy tale-ish, and fun, so I'm excited to talk about them today and tell you what I thought about them. So let's go ahead and jump in. So the very first book that I ended up reading in December is a popular one. It is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. If you haven't heard about this book before, my goodness, where have you been? Because this book has been everywhere. I feel like everyone and their mom has read this book and everyone's loved it, and I can see why. So if you haven't heard of this before, you don't know the premise, let me tell you really quick. We're following this man named Linus Baker, and he works at the Department for Magical Youth, and he is a caseworker. And what he does is he goes to these different orphanages that have kids that have magical abilities. One day he is called to go to this orphanage, kind of like on the edge of the world. It seems like it's in this small town right next to the sea. As you can see, it's like this cliff by the sea. Beautiful location, but apparently it has magical youth there that are seen as dangerous, strange and dangerous children, and he's called to go there, one, to make sure that they're being taken care of well, and two, to make sure like that they actually aren't a danger to other people around them. And so he goes there and ends up meeting these amazing kids that are strange but wonderful. It's an extremely heartwarming story. It is an adult book, but it's actually written in a style of middle grade. So it's very whimsical. It's extremely heartwarming. I highly, highly recommend this book. It was fantastic. Let me look at my notes here to see what I wrote on it. The overall feel and style definitely has a whimsical middle grade feel. Absolutely adore the characters, especially the children. Lucy and Talia are my favorites. The kids all have their unique quirks. I'm not going to really give any, I don't want to spoil anything because some people I feel like go too in depth about what each kid is like, but it kind of focuses on the idea of these kids are seen to the general public as monsters, and because of that they were originally taught before they came to this orphanage, not necessarily taught, but felt like they had to act like the monsters that people saw them as they were. And they come here, and the proprietor of this orphanage that takes care of them, he's this amazing man who very kindly tells these kids, you don't have to be what other people say that you are. Other people think you're monsters or that you're supposed to be evil, but you don't have to be that way. Your past or what people see you as is not who you have to be. And so I think it's just a beautiful message, and it's wonderful to see these kids who most people would think are monsters or someone terrifying to being kids. They're kids, and like allow them to be kids. It's just so sweet. Yes, love the focus on how others place expectations on a person from how they look or how they are assumed to be. Like I said, personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of the romance in this book. There is a romance in it, but I feel like the integrity of the story would have still held without it. I don't know why. I was more interested in the kids and what was going on with them. Now, this isn't a plot heavy book, I will tell you that. It's a rather slow moving book. It's more about the characters and their relationships and not necessarily like much of a plot. So I really liked the focus on the kids themselves in the orphanage. There is a romance in it, and I know a lot of people love the romance, and it's not that the romance can't be heartwarming. I'm not a huge romance person, and so personally, I kind of would have enjoyed it more without the romance in there and it being solely focused on just the kids, because I feel like the overall feel and the transformation of Linus Baker, our main character we're following, I feel like his transformation still would have been the same without the romance. Still that feeling of him finding a belonging, finding just sort of more of a place to belong and family and love. I feel like that still could have easily occurred without the romance, if that makes sense. So personally, I would have liked it without the romance in there because I just really, really liked the kids a lot more. This is starting to fade on me because I'm talking too long about it. I would love to see a sequel of this book. I want to read about the children's home again. I want more of these kids. I love them so much. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely adored it. Highly recommend. I just thought it was a lot of fun and extremely heartwarming. So it was a great time. After that, I went to a middle grade, and one that I have heard of a lot on BookTube and a lot of people love, and it's called Greenglass House by Kate Milford. Again, this is a middle grade. It takes place in this, I guess you could say, almost like a ski lodge. It's not really a ski lodge. It's located up in this mountain, and as you can see, and from the name of it, it's this place that has a whole bunch of green glass, or what is it called? Not mosaics. I can't think of the word right now. I'm so sorry. But it has the colored windows. It's somewhere that people come to stay. It's a hotel. Okay. I can't think of the word. Hotel. My goodness. It takes place around Christmas time. And normally at this house around Christmas time, they don't really have very many people that come stay there, if at all, because it just gets so wintry and like it's hard to get up there. And so we're following this parents and this little boy, and they all live in this hotel and run the hotel together. So usually normally during Christmas, they kind of get a little bit of a break. They get to spend time, just the three of them, and getting to play board games and just enjoy a roaring fire and the snow. But then unexpectedly, several people show up to stay at this hotel, and they're just not expecting all these people, and person after person after person keeps coming. And initially, they seem like they don't know each other, and then as the story goes on, you start to realize that all these guests, I think, are there for similar reasons and also know each other. And so there's a lot of a mystery aspect to it. I was surprised by how much of a disappointment this was. So I didn't like it, which I was surprised about, because this was a book that so many people love. So many people I know have given this 5 stars, like adored it. I didn't like it. I continually felt disconnected from the characters, and the mystery never seemed to grab me or just make sense. I felt like the mystery was really meandering and never really grabbed me. I never understood the point of the mystery, or why it was not necessarily important, but why it was intriguing. Let's put it that way. I never felt grabbed. A lot of people really love the ambiance of this. And I can see that, but it still didn't even grab me. I guess that was probably the only thing I did like about it, was the fact that it took place during Christmas and it had like a snowy, wintry, hot chocolate feel, that kind of thing. But other than that, I never felt connected to the characters. I felt like I couldn't really picture people well. I didn't really like it very much. I just didn't connect with it. It's just sadly just a miss for me. So I ended up giving this 2 out of 5 stars. I know I'm like way out of the majority with that, because I know a lot of people love it. So please don't take my review to be like, oh, I'm not going to touch that book, because a lot of people really love it. So if it sounds intriguing to you, the premise of it, then go for it, because a lot of people really love this book. It was just a miss for me. I'm not sure why, but I just didn't like it that much. After that, I jumped into another very magical middle grade that I ended up loving this one. It is A Tale of Witchcraft by Colfer. This is the second book in his like prequel series to the Land of Stories series, where we're following kind of the put together, that makes no sense, where it's sort of like the creation and start of the fairy council, and about fairy godmother, where she came from, all that kind of stuff, and Mother Goose and all of that. And it's been so fun and whimsical. I love Colfer so much. I love his storytelling, and he puts so many twists and turns in there. He puts so much depth in his character, so I love it. It was another magical installment to a fun series. I really appreciated and enjoyed the focus on mental health. There was a lot of focus on mental health in this particular installment, which I really loved. I feel like a lot of times he has not necessarily like a moral, but he has some kind of focus a lot of times in his books, especially in this series I've noticed so far. Excuse me. The first book I noticed really focused on just feeling empowered to be who you are and to embrace that. And then this one focused a lot on mental health and how that negative thoughts can invade your brain and how to battle against that. And so I really, really loved that focus and the way that was done. I felt like it was so great. I feel like I've got so many fuzzies floating all over. I'm sorry if you can see them. I love this sweater, but it sheds, and it's like puffing blue fuzz all over the screen, and it's really distracting. So I'm sorry if you can see that, if I'm like looking around like this, like a weirdo. I like how there's always a mix of light and dark elements in his books. There's always like joy and whimsicalness, but then there's always some dark elements and focus in it that I really liked. I enjoy the new witch characters. I'm always a fan of dark humor. So because this is called Tale of Witchcraft, you can guess that there are now not just fairies in this, but witches as well. And yes, they're witches, and they're more dark characters, and I really enjoyed it. I loved that addition to it of having the kind of like dark characters and darker humor in it. It was really fun. I'm excited to read more and read the next installment when it comes out because the series is so fun. So if you want something whimsical that's like a full-on mashup of a bunch of fairy tale characters and it's just heartwarming but also fast-paced, lots of action, I would highly recommend the series. I think it's a lot of fun and I think you'd enjoy it. And if you haven't read The Land of Stories, you should read that too because that one is real good. After that, I went to something super Christmassy that I was really, really excited to read, and I can't believe I hadn't really heard this before like longer ago, and that is Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is precious. If you've not heard of this before, this is a book collection of all the letters that Tolkien wrote for his kids when they believed in Santa, and he wrote these letters to them as Santa, and they are precious. He put so much work into them. I just absolutely love them. Look at my notes here. He has such a precious collection of letters. It warms my heart how much imagination and effort Tolkien put into his Santa letters. They aren't just like, hey, how you doing? You know, you've been good this year. Like it was, he full on made stories out of it. He talked as Santa, like saying how his year has been at the North Pole, and he has this polar bear that helps him like get the presents ready. And so it's not like a whole bunch of elves, but it's like him and this polar bear. And he talks to them about how the weather's been and like funny things the polar bear has done. Like it's a whole story. And I loved reading it because it's like every year we're like, okay, what did the polar bear get up to this year? And it was just so precious. I just loved it. It's a perfect read for some holiday cheer and would be fun to read with my daughter one day. I think this would be really fun to pull out one day just to read with her and just kind of like enjoy the whimsicalness of it. It definitely gives you a dose of holiday cheer. So I know it's past Christmas, but please put this one on your TBR for December of 2021 because this one was so fun. It's cute. It's really short. I wish I read it on my Kindle. I wish I had a physical copy of it because it has the letters like actual typed out so you could read them, but it also has a picture of the actual letter itself in his handwriting, which it had that on the Kindle for me, but unfortunately like it was too small and I couldn't see it very well, and I would have loved to have seen it a little better. Also, there are illustrations. Tolkien actually drew pictures as well to go along with his letters of like things that Santa was doing, which is so adorable. And those pictures are a little too small in my Kindle, so I really wish that I could have read it physically. So hopefully maybe someday I can pick up a copy of this and be able to read it with my daughter one day because it was so freaking cute. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Oh, I just realized I didn't say what my rating was for Witchcraft. That was 4 out of 5 stars as well. So I enjoy them both very much. All right, this next one is one that I had on my TBR for the longest time. I mean, I legit have owned this book for so long. I picked it up at a thrift store and I wanted to read it, but I never got around to it. And for some reason, December felt like the right time. And that was Peter and the Starcatchers by Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson. This sounds like such a magical series. It's a 5-book series. It's all completed. It's been out for a while. And as you can probably guess, it is a Peter Pan story. And it's actually a Peter Pan prequel. It's the idea of how Peter Pan came into being, how Neverland came into being, Tinkerbell, the Captain Hook, just all of it. It's like this whole prequel thing, which I thought would be so much fun. And it was a good time. This is a middle grade series. And in this story, we are following just that. We are following sort of the beginning of Peter Pan and his story and Captain Hook and his story and the creation of Tinkerbell and all those sort of things. So it was interesting. It was a really interesting way of telling the story and how those things could have come to fruition. It's a fun and imaginative take on the origin of Peter Pan and Neverland. I'm usually not a fan of seafaring tales, but this one was fast-paced and fun. So most of this book did take place on the high seas. We're on ships, and there were pirate ships and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of it took place on the ocean, which I'm not a huge fan of seafaring tales or pirate stories. I tried reading some of them and they just don't intrigue me that much. They just don't really grab me. And so I was pleased to see that I actually enjoyed this. This is very fast paced. The chapters also are extremely short, which I love. There's tons of chapters in this book. It's pretty thick, but I liked the shorter chapters. It was very fast paced. It does change perspectives per chapter, which was nice. So it just has that fast paced feel. So I ended up enjoying the seafaring tale, being on the ocean and all that a lot more than I normally would, which was really, really cool to see. I would love to see this adapted one day. I think this would be a really, really cool movie or TV show. I know there's been some other movies and stuff that have come out that have given kind of prequels to Peter Pan. I've seen some of them and they were really good. There was one in particular that was on, I think it was made for the Sci-Fi Channel. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the name of it, but it was actually really, really good. It was like a mini series of like the creation of Peter Pan and Captain Hook and all that. And it was really, really good. There's some really weird spots in there because it's a sci-fi thing, but it was really fun. But I would like to see this adapted. I think this would do really well. This may even make a really cool TV show as well. Disney Plus, get on that. I think it would be really, really neat. I'm looking forward to reading the whole series. Like I said, there are 5 books. I'm not going to rush myself trying to read these. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars, so it wasn't like oh my goodness, I love it, let me get to the next one right away. It was cute. It was fun. I'm interested to see, this was a lot of setup in this book, so I'm interested to see what happens next. I feel like the next one will be a little bit more fun, because I feel like there maybe won't be as much info dumping or setup in the next book. So I think maybe the next book may be a little bit more fun for me. But this one was still a good time. I do recommend, if you are a fan of Peter Pan or just like fairy tale retellings in general, or just like beloved children's tales, then I would recommend it. I thought it was a good time. And it's a series that's already fully done and out, so you can just binge the whole thing. All right, let's see. Last book. Let me get the picture pulled up for you so you can see it. So this last one was another middle grade. I did read a lot of middle grade in December. I was just in the mood for some fun, whimsical stories, so I really leaned on middle grade. Let me find the cover. Okay. I read Pages & Co., Tilly and the Lost Fairytales by Anna James. This is the second book in the Pages & Co. or Tilly series. I think it's called Pages & Co. series. I'm not really sure. So if you haven't heard of this book series before, it is very heartwarming and whimsical. We're following this girl called Tilly. She lives with her grandparents in their bookstore in London. And it's like this 3 or 5 story bookstore. I don't know. It's this huge bookstore, and there's like lots of roaring fires and comfy chairs. There's even a cafe in the bookstore, so you can go get like sweet treats and coffees and stuff, and it's just it sounds wonderful. I loved the first book so much, but other than the fact that there's the coziness and the bookstore vibe, we also find out that Tilly is what is called a book wanderer, which means that she can actually go inside books, and she can actually have the ability to pull some book characters out of their stories and interact with them. So in the first book, we've got Alice in Wonderland, and we have Anne of Green Gables, and it's so lovely, and I adore it, and I just thought it was so stinking cute. So I was excited to jump into the second book just to have some more of that whimsical take. And this one, as you can guess, as it's called Tilly and the Lost Fairytales, this one has a lot more fairy tale and classic fairy tale elements to it. Think like Brothers Grimm style fairy tales, that kind of thing. It was an enjoyable experience. It wasn't quite as cozy feeling as the first one, to be honest. It felt like it had a lot of info dumping, and it slowed down the story. This one, the first book had info dumping definitely to kind of like set up what a book wanderer was and all that kind of stuff. But that one I felt like was smoother. This one, there was a lot of info dumping in this one, which I was not expecting because it's the second book, right? You're thinking the first book may have a lot of info dumping, and then the second book will be a little bit more plot heavy and seamless because of the fact that we've had so much introduction and explanation in the first book. But this one had a lot of info dumping in it, and it slowed down the story to me. And it wasn't info dumping that was done well. Sometimes info dumping can be seamless and kind of like go along with the story and it works. This one, I just felt like it bogged the story down. So there was a good chunk of the story that I kind of felt like it was too slow and honestly a little bit boring because it was just so info dumping on what was going on. It was still really good, but I'm hopeful that the next is better and it's less of an info dump and more driving plot. I'm really hopeful that we've finally gotten past the info dumping. I hope that would be great. I did end up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. It's still a really great book. I really enjoyed it a lot. I love the first one more, but I'm excited to read the next book. The third book is actually out. I'm not sure how many books are on this series. I don't know if that's the last one or if there's more coming. It's really cute, really adorable. Highly recommend. Just the second one wasn't as fun for me. So those are all the books that I read in December. I got through a little bit more in December than I thought I would because, as I'm sure for most of you, December is just crazy and busy. There's so much going on. There's a lot of joy and there's a lot of stress and anxiety as well, which is, was true for me as well. So I don't know, we were looking forward to the beginning of a new year and all that kind of stuff. So it felt like a little bit of a mess of a month, but I was excited to read so many like fun, whimsical books, especially The House on the Cerulean Sea. That was so heartwarming. I had a really great time with that. Let me know down below what your favorite book from December was. I would love to know. Also, let me know if there are any books that I mentioned today that you have also read. I would really, really love to chat with you about them. On this side of the video over here is my logo. If you click on that, you can subscribe to my channel, follow me on my book journey. On this side of the video over here is a suggestion for another video if you want to watch another one right now. But thank you so much for watching. You rock, and don't forget to keep reading. Bye!